And so I think really we need to start focusing on making the kind of progress that's needed. And I'll tell you, right now, a big part of my focus and why I'm so focused on Arizona and providing doctors from Arizona the ability to come into California through emergency legislation we'll introduce with our Women's Caucus this week is to address the crisis at hand with that law that will go into effect on May 1st to provide access to women and girls that are fleeing the state of Arizona, and to focus on Arizona electorally, to focus on Nevada electorally, that will play potentially an outsized role in this election and what the needs and the aspirations and desires of the people that live there are. And I think those needs and aspirations, desires are a little bit bigger than reinforcing a previous point of view as it relates to the character or lack thereof of the former President of the United States, Donald Trump.
First of all, announcements like this one by Gavin Newsom make me proud to be both a Californian and a Democrat, where we don't believe that our politicians should insert themselves between a woman and her doctor, where we don't impose some unpopular theocratic edicts onto people while simultaneously beating our chests about how we're somehow the defenders of personal freedom, where we don't fearmonger about big government while ushering it in ourselves. Republicans may think they own the concept of freedom, but that freedom is only for people who believe in exactly what they believe in and no one else. And if you need further proof of that, here's an ad that Gavin Newsom himself released also yesterday, illustrating that point perfectly.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Now, while Newsom's announcement regarding expediting the licenses of Arizona abortion providers to let them treat patients in California is welcome news, let's be clear, it is not a solution. It is a band-aid. It's a way to stem the bleeding for a little bit longer. The actual solution here is to vote Democrats into office who will pass nationwide protections and codify Roe into law. We cannot become complacent in thinking that scattershot laws from a few states will compensate for abortion bans or severe restrictions in a staggering 21 states across this country, thanks to Republicans, because they won't. They offer a brief respite from these bans, but the real solution can only happen at the ballot box this November. And by the way, I absolutely know that there are folks watching this who are going to say Democrats were in the majority before, they controlled the House, they controlled the Senate, they controlled the White House, they didn't codify Roe then, why would I trust them to do it in the future? And the answer is simple. There is a 60-vote threshold to pass any legislation in the U.S. Senate. It's called the filibuster. In the last Congress, when Democrats did have a 51-49 majority in the Senate, we had two senators who were immovable when it came to the filibuster. Both of those senators are going to be out of the Senate next cycle, Joe Manchin in West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona. The rest of the Democrats were united in their support of eliminating the filibuster. And so if Ruben Gallego in Arizona is able to take Kyrsten Sinema's seat, and if we're able to hold on to the rest of the seats that we're defending, including Sherrod Brown in Ohio, John Tester in Montana, Jackie Rosen in Nevada, and Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, then we will have a Democratic caucus united in its support of eliminating the filibuster in 2024 and beyond. And with that comes the ability to codify Roe into law. It also means we could pass a Voting Rights Act, which would make partisan gerrymandering illegal, which would protect our elections from vigilantes, and make Election Day a national holiday. We could raise the national minimum wage. We could make the PRO Act the law of the land by supporting unions. The list goes on, and it's all within reach. So I understand how it's easy to conflate the fact that Democrats had control of government with their inability to codify Roe before, but the fact is that we had two senators for whom procedure was more important than the legislation itself. Two senators who allowed themselves to get rolled by Republicans by buying into this bogus framing that somehow eliminating the filibuster would lead to abuses of the system, as if Republicans haven't already been steeped in abuses of the system. To be perfectly clear, the filibuster is already eliminated for all of Republicans' priorities. They eliminated the filibuster to confirm judges, which is Mitch McConnell's top priority, and for tax-related bills, which means tax cuts for the rich, which again is all of Republicans' priority. So when they crow about the sacrosanctity of the filibuster, just know that for all of their priorities, the filibuster is gone. The only filibuster still in place is for anything that Democrats want to pass, meaning actual legislation, popular legislation that enjoys the support of the vast majority of this country. What Manchin and Sinema were doing wasn't protecting the integrity of any institution. They were entrenching its asymmetric benefits conferred to Republicans. And more broadly on this topic, I hear often that Democrats don't wield their power more effectively when they have the chance, and so what's the point of rewarding them with more power? And it's true that Democrats historically, and even currently, don't wield their power as effectively as they can. But elections aren't some blind end-of-term grading system on the current government or some imposition of a purity test. They are an opportunity to select a track that you want to see the country on moving forward. Even if you don't think Biden is perfect, which he is not, the November election will determine what the country will look like moving forward. It is the difference between a president who will combat climate change and a climate denier who only cares about kowtowing to fossil fuel companies. The difference between a president who believes in free and fair elections or an autocrat who doesn't want any more elections at all. The difference between a president who believes in the right to bodily autonomy and a guy who's going to pander to religious zealots and who will impose a nationwide ban on abortion. We gain nothing by punishing Joe Biden because he wasn't perfect if it means helping usher in someone who will be worse. Here's Pod Save America's John Lovett discussing that exact point.
We all collectively have a choice about whether or not we want someone who is going to fight to make the country better or someone who's going to make it much worse, someone who's going to try to enshrine Roe into law or someone who's going to try to pass a national abortion ban, someone who is going to go after trans people and gender affirming care or someone who's going to try to protect it at the federal level, someone who believes in democracy or someone who doesn't. Voting is not some grand statement of human identity. It is not the defining character trait that proves who you are or what you believe. It is an opportunity to use a lever of power to make the country better or to make the country worse. We will have a choice in November. On climate, for example, I don't think that there is a bigger choice facing a democracy on Earth, probably in the next decade, than whether or not we elect a Democrat. For the climate, on planet Earth, I don't think that there's a bigger choice. I think every climate activist in the country, whatever their legitimate gripes are with Joe Biden's embrace of kind of an all-of-the-above strategy of his failure to do a host of different things, whatever the valid criticisms may be, every person who believes that we have to tackle climate change ought to be doing everything they can to elect Joe Biden in November. And you can do that across virtually every single issue.
And here's AOC speaking with Mehdi Hasan again about that point.
What do you say to a young progressive or an Arab American who says to you, I just can't vote for Biden again after what he's enabled in Gaza? What do you say to them?
I mean, I think everyone comes to this prospect and this conversation with a different history, different background, what they bring. You know, for an individual Palestinian American that has had their family killed, there is nothing, I mean, I am not here to lecture anyone. I also think that this election is more, in my personal view, I believe this election is about more than the president. And also, it's not just one election that's happening. We're having hundreds of elections.
Yes.
The balance of Congress, the balance of the House, the balance of the Senate, and the presidency. And I have a vested interest in protecting democracy, not just here domestically, but globally. And it isn't, I truly do not believe this as a lesser of two evils type of situation. I think about what conditions do I want to be organizing under in the next 4 years.
Yeah.
We can look at both of these individuals oppositionally as well, depending on what issue you have. But I would rather, even in places of stark disagreement, I would rather be organizing under the conditions of Biden as an opponent on an issue than Trump, who is not, he seeks to dismantle American democracy. And I am taking that personally very seriously.
Yes.
Because we will not be able to organize for any movement towards anything if we are facing the jailing of dissidents. I mean, this is the kind of authoritarianism that he threatens.
Fascism.
And we have to take it seriously.
All of which is to say, we have the opportunity to protect democracy and get some, if not all, of the changes that we want to see moving forward. But it means being strategic, and it means being informed, and it means not allowing perfect to be the enemy of good. Because right now, the alternative is a dangerous zealot who will usher in the end of democracy. So we need to be clear-eyed about what's at stake. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.